Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for presiding over this very long debate, and the hour is late. So, I will finish my remarks quickly. I do want to acknowledge Leader Senator Ort. It's been nice working with you during this process. And of course, I want to acknowledge Senator Kruger, who has done just an incredible job with all of these budget hearings and certainly during this budget process, and of course her colleague Senator O'Mara for his work. Also, I want to acknowledge my deputy. I know you're so happy to continue to be here for this, but you've come this far, so you might as well take the acknowledgement. Thank you so much for leading the debate and making sure that our voices are heard in an orderly fashion. And of course, your counterpart, Senator Lanza, thank you so much as well. I really also want to thank my council and finance staff. They are just incredible people who are dedicated to doing the work of New Yorkers, and that's on both sides of the aisle. This work, the staff to make us all prepared is not easy, so it is very, very much appreciated. And of course, a special shout out to my chief of staff, the unflappable Chantel Smith, my finance secretary, David Freidfeld, communications director, Mike Murphy, director of intergovernmental affairs, Lorena Moore, for all that they have done throughout this process. And of course, the amazing members of the Democratic Majority Conference for their tenacity, their advocacy, and all that they've accomplished. And I also want to thank the countless organizations and grassroots activists who advocated for equitable, visionary state budgets, and for all those who have started to understand that democracy works best when we work together. I'm grateful for today, but I do miss the days when this chamber, even at 3 a.m., was filled with people and energy, and I do hope that we are on the cusp of that happening again sometime soon. But being here in this empty chamber is a reminder, again, of the awful toll that this virus has taken over the last year. Over 50,000 New Yorkers have died from COVID-19. Countless parents, grandparents, siblings, friends have spent more than a year separated from their loved ones. Thousands of small businesses have seen their life's work dissipate and their doors shuttered, while even more hardworking New Yorkers have lost their jobs or seen their incomes plummet. Children all over state have lost precious moments to learn, to grow, and form friendships. And our frontline health workers are still doing heroic work while carrying the trauma of seeing their workplaces overwhelmed and colleagues lost due to this terrible disease. These are human tragedies that we as legislators can never erase from our state's shared experience. However, many of the deep issues that have been exposed by this virus existed in our society beforehand. That's why so much happened during this past year. During so much of this past year, we've acknowledged the need for a reckoning, and this budget is a reflection of that reckoning. We took bold steps to ease the sufferings of our neighbors who are still struggling. We chipped away at structural injustices that made this pandemic even worse for some New Yorkers than others. And we invested in stronger and a more equitable future for our state so that all of us are better equipped for the next crisis and all of us have access to affordable housing and quality health care and good public schools and decent wages that every New Yorker deserves. This budget represents a light at the end of the tunnel and shows us a path forward that will lead New York State through this pandemic and beyond. The task we faced in constructing this budget was a daunting one, but it would have been even more challenging were it not for the new Democratic Congress that delivered on President Biden's promise to provide critical funding through the American Rescue Plan that will help our economy, our families, our schools, and our small businesses. Thank you, President Biden, Senator Majority Leader, our own New Yorker, Chuck Schumer, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and those from our New York congressional delegation who showed moral leadership in supporting this needed recovery. This federal support was desperately needed, and it creates a bridge to the future by offsetting so much of the economic damage caused by COVID-19 pandemic. It gives us the opportunity to look at the other side of that bridge and chart a new, more equitable path forward. Here's what we did with that opportunity. In 2019, we passed the strongest housing and tenant protections in the history of New York State. However, the pandemic has further exposed the thin line for so many between having a roof over their heads or homelessness. Too often, the difference is just a single paycheck. This budget will help provide renters who can't afford their rents, for struggling landlords and homeowners across the state some security. New York students and educators have navigated tough times adapting to remote learning and safely reopening our schools. The Senate majority is moving forward with a transformational increase in state and federal resources to create better educational opportunities for our students and provide the resources our teachers need to do their job. Our commitment to educating all of our children from pre-K to the senior year of college has never been more evident than it is today. We are expanding pre-K for more than 200 school districts and will be committing to universal pre-K statewide in the next 3 years. We're finally giving our schools the funding that was owed for years. In fact, when I first ran, it was about CFE in many ways. And so we're committing to a 3-year phase-in of a fully funded foundation aid. And we're investing in higher education like never before, with higher scholarships, hundreds of millions in new funding for CUNY and SUNY, including eliminating the TAP gap after 3 years. This budget helps New Yorkers from young children in pre-K throughout the entire education system to those seeking a higher education to improve their opportunities in life. Investing in students at all points in their education is how we ensure a better future for both them and all of us. The COVID-19 pandemic shuttered so many of our small businesses, and we mourn the restaurants and the stores and the theaters in our community that will never come back. But there are others that are hanging on but are still struggling. And today the Senate majority is telling them that we have their back. This budget adds $1 billion in direct state aid for small business in addition to the $2.3 billion of federal funding that will be available. It also funds nonprofits, arts organizations that will be vital to life in New York, returning to the vibrant, dynamic normal we all remember. We also committed to building an infrastructure worthy of the 21st century, and that's why we're spending more than $1 billion on infrastructure investments, including hundreds of millions on our local roads, and expanding access to affordable broadband throughout the state. And as the emerging debate in Washington has made clear, we can't tackle infrastructure without also taking on climate change. This budget takes historic action to authorize $3 billion for the Environmental Bond Act of 2021, clean water, green jobs, green New York, to fund environmental improvements that preserve, enhance, and restore New York's natural resources and reduces the impact of climate change. The pandemic highlighted gaps in our healthcare system This budget is committed to ensuring that New Yorkers receive quality and affordable health care by restoring billions of dollars to cuts in our system and other services, increasing access to health care for everyone, including our most vulnerable residents. So many hardworking people in New York have faced economic hardship and challenges in employment opportunities during this pandemic. And that's why we're creating a new, one-time only excluded worker fund to provide financial resources to workers who lost their jobs during COVID-19 pandemic, but were ineligible for any aid. Despite even some of the dehumanizing rhetoric, the fact that this money is going to people who worked jobs, paid taxes, and kept our economy running and our families fed, at great risk to their health and lives, didn't get any help in return. We need to make sure that we are helping people. The fearmongers won't tell New Yorkers the story on their Twitter accounts. Again, you heard it before. Undocumented immigrants in New York paid an estimated $3.6 billion in taxes in 2019, $1.4 billion in state taxes alone. They put $19.2 billion into our state's economy. It is in everyone's best interest that all unemployed New Yorkers get back on their feet, regardless of their immigration status. Let's be clear. This money is stimulus money. It will be going right back into our local economies. And sadly, we've seen a rash of hate crimes against our Asian brothers and sisters, something that we must put an end to immediately. This budget provides much needed funding to combat hate crimes, offer protections to communities, and also provides educational tools to combat hate in schools. New York has a robust and expansive agriculture industry that is crucial to the state's economy. This budget provides help for our family farmers who kept food on our table at the height of this pandemic. These historic investments are not only vital to our current recovery, they are the foundation for shared prosperity and broad opportunity, which is why we're not just plugging today's deficits and leaving the problem of the future for another time. Instead, we are asking those who have done the best during this pandemic to give a little more so we can truly rebuild our state in a sustainable way. Despite what our colleagues across the aisle may say, the facts are that if you're a New Yorker not making over $1 million annually, that's net, this does not impact you. In fact, today, we delivered much-needed tax breaks for working and middle-class New Yorkers, including a new $440 million property tax circuit breaker and guaranteeing $400 million in middle-class personal tax income cuts. We also legalize mobile sports wagering to create jobs, bring hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue to our state. What this revenue will do is to help all New Yorkers, our families, friends, and neighbors. This is all pretty incredible when you take a moment to remember the many challenges this budget brought with it, a pre-existing deficit, a global pandemic, and questions about how to best take advantage of this federal aid package and not lead to a fiscal cliff. While this budget may not hit upon the absolute wants of every individual person or group, it helps all of us move forward together. This is a bold budget and takes historic action during unprecedented times. And for that, I'm proud and ready to continue this momentum in the coming months of the legislative session. Again, I want to thank all my senators, all of our senators, on both sides of the aisle, all the staff for their extraordinary work. So we have a little break. You can get back to your districts, your family safely. Enjoy a little bit of spring. And of course, when we come back, we'll continue to do the people's work. So thank you. And of course, I vote aye.